All right, so let's start thinking about applying some of the knowledge of the chromatic scale and the melodic elements of music to the guitar. So the first thing to do is apply names to the strings as they relate to the chromatic scale. So there are a number of different sentences that you can use in order to help you remember the names of the strings. This is my favorite, the top one. Every acid dealer gets busted eventually. Not a true statement, but pretty easy to remember. Every acid dealer gets busted eventually. This is one I use with all my students. Works like a charm. You also got Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. Every amateur does get better eventually. So this is just a basic thing that you gotta remember. It's gonna help your playing so much to just internalize this. And if you gotta repeat the sentence to yourself for months, that's fine. Whatever. Just remember a sentence and know that it goes from the top string, the low E, so essentially like the string that's closest to your face, all the way down to the bottom E. And you'll notice these are the same note, but they are an octave apart. Well, they're more than an octave apart. This one is a low E. This one's high. And as we were talking about in a previous video, if you're looking at the chromatic scale, it repeats. So this happens along the course of your guitar, going up the strings. And there are multiple octaves that are happening. So this is a higher octave of E than this E right here. Okay, so now I want to go on to applying the chromatic scale to the guitar in terms of naming frets. So every fret on your guitar has a letter name assigned to it that matches with the chromatic scale. So here we have the chromatic scale. And again, you can start the chromatic scale on any letter. It doesn't matter, but I'm starting it on E because we're going to apply it to the low E string. So if you take a look here, you can see that each one of these boxes corresponds with a circle down here. And fret 1, when you pluck the E string by itself, you just get an open E. You just get E, so you can consider it to be right here on your chromatic scale. And if you press your finger on fret 1, you're moving up a half step. If you remember back to our discussion on intervals, the distance from one block to the next block is a half step. And in this case, it's the distance of one fret. And when you play a string open, you can kind of consider it to be its own location. And then your first fret is the distance of one block. So you can consider that it's like your first fret. So that's a half step. And so if you just follow the chromatic scale up, you get all the names of your frets. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. It seems pretty basic, but it's just really important to remember the names of your frets because it's just going to make your life so much easier further down the line. And just a couple things to mention here. So you'll notice that I have F sharp. For the accidentals, I have the sharps here. There's no real reason for that other than that it's cleaner graphically and it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. There's less information on the page, so it's easier to remember. But anytime you see an accidental, know that it also has another name, an inharmonic equivalent. So in this case, F sharp is the same as G flat. G sharp is the same as A flat, and so on. And another thing to note, that you have no E sharp. There's no E sharp fret. Or to apply what we just talked about, there's no F flat fret. And also there's no B sharp or C flat fret. It goes right from B to C. And that's just because the chromatic scale is that way. There's no B sharp or C flat. There's no E sharp or F flat. Okay, cool. So I want to show something cool here. How if you use the chromatic scale, and you can see how it builds up here. I'm going to switch something here so things don't keep lighting up when I touch them. All right, cool. Okay, so if you use the chromatic scale and you follow it up, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Okay, cool. So that's why I put it in blue, because I want you to notice that the next string is an A. Every acid dealer gets busted eventually. So every acid. So I put them in the same color so that you notice that there's a correlation going on here. So if you were to press this A and pluck your next string, they would sound the same. And what I want to do here is I want to start showing you how the chromatic scale applies to the guitar neck, and it allows you to know the names of every single fret, or allows you to figure out how to name every single fret. It would be a lot to just memorize every single fret on every string, but if you know the principles of the chromatic scale, you can at least determine what it is. You can figure it out. So here we go. The chromatic scale walks up from E to A, and then when you get to A, you can continue on here, going up to E string, but it also repeats itself and starts again here. So this A sharp is the same as this A sharp. It's just played on a different string. They're not even different octaves. They're the same octave. They would sound the same if you played them. So again, I put this in blue and this in blue to just show you that as you go up, it starts repeating itself, and it continues up here, but it also continues up here. And then look at this. You got A sharp, B, C. Again, there's no accidentals between B and C. And then you've got D right here, and I put it in green so that you can notice that it happens again right there. All right, cool. So you can see a little pattern coming here, and actually I'm just going to throw them all there. It's going to look like a crazy mess, but I just want to show you what's going on. Okay, so yeah, this looks like a crazy mess, but you've got all the notes on the fretboard. And remember, anytime you see a sharp, its inharmonic equivalent is the flat of the note above it. So A sharp is the same as B flat. So just as you see in all this, just remember that. Okay, so as the chromatic scale continues up your guitar neck, D, D sharp, E, F, it continues up the A string, but it also starts again at the D string here, and it continues up until you get to G, and look at that, G happens right there. So on the 5th fret, 1, this is fret 1, so open is 0 fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the 5th fret on your E string, you get A. On the 5th fret of your A string, you get D. On the 5th fret of your D string, you get G. Okay, so here's where an anomaly happens because of just the way that the chromatic scale is laid out and the guitar is laid out. There's an anomaly here, so the 4th fret ends up being the name of the next string. So this is the only situation on the guitar where this happens. So, you just follow it up and you can see why it happens. G, G sharp, A sharp, B. So there's the name of your next string. And if you continue it all the way up, you're back to the beginning, back to your E, except many octaves higher. Okay, so I also want to point out that there are 12 frets on the guitar before you have an octave occur, because there's 12 steps in a chromatic scale. And all guitars, they continue even further up. And what would happen is just the scale would continue, but an octave higher. F would be here, F sharp would follow it. A's here at your octave above A here. A sharp would be here, B would come, and so on. And the cool thing about understanding the chromatic scale as it applies to guitar is that it helps you find certain notes on the neck. So if you were playing, say you were playing this note here, it's the 6th fret on your B string, kind of just a random note, and just like, I don't know, kind of a lost in a sea of notes. I have no idea what that is just by looking at it. You can figure it out by knowing that the 5th fret is E, because you know that the next string after B is E. Every acid dealer gets busted eventually. And that the 5th fret on B is an E. So you can use that knowledge to say, okay, well, if fret 5 on string B is an E, then 1 fret above it is an F, because I know the chromatic scale goes from E to F. And this pattern of repeating string notes to strings is very helpful, because it is the way that you can tune your guitar without an electronic tuner, which is a super, super helpful thing to be able to do. So this is what I mean. So if you were to play an open E right here, and you wanted to make the A string and the rest of the strings in tune with your E string relative to the pitch of this string, all you have to do is press on fret 5, because you know that the way that the chromatic scale works, that fret 5 is A, and it's also the same note as your next string. So if you press this string down, this fret down on the E string, and you pluck it, it will make a tone that should be the same tone as when you pluck this string open. And if it's not, if this string doesn't sound like this fret, you tune this string until it matches the pitch of this. You tune this string so it goes either sharper or flatter until it matches. Once it matches, your E and your A string are in tune in relation to each other. And when that happens, you can move on to the D. You press down fret 5 on the A string, and this pitch right here, when you press down fret 5 on the A string, this pitch should match this right here, because you've already made these two in tune with each other. In order to make this in tune with these, you want your D to match. So you press this and then pluck this string and this string together, and you tune this open string until it matches this. And you can continue this pattern. You press right here, fret 5 on your D string, and then pluck it along with the G string open, and tune the G string until it matches this pitch. And then you've arrived at the anomaly. So if you want to make the open B string in tune with the rest of what you've done so far, and you've got to move sequentially so that they match each other, press fret 4 this time, and then you pluck the G string, fret 4, and the open B string together, and you tune the B string until it matches this pitch. And then to complete it, fret 5 on the B string, you pluck this, and then the E string open, and make this one the same pitch as this right here. And then once you've done that, if you've done a good job of matching the pitch, which is pretty difficult, this E should sound the same as this E, except an octave above, and it's a good way to tell if you've tuned correctly.